Text. You keep using that word. Andrew Petro.
Good call on the recording. This presentation comes from hearing the term technical debt and wondering what it means. This is a funny meme, but I can own this with an I statement. You keep using that word, technical debt, and I realized I did not know what it meant, and that was confusing and maybe a little uncomfortable.
The prairie dog beside the word technical?
I think of myself as technical, so all this talk of technical debt, like, is that about me? Is it my fault? How would you feel if we went around talking about management debt? Like, I don't know, that seems a little uncomfortable.
Text. Management debt.
Are we blaming the technologists?
4 people clasp each other's wrists.
Technical debt also seems to come up as a reason, a context, maybe even an excuse. Why can't IT do the thing or ship the feature or do something faster? Technical debt. That's why. Why do we need to replace the thing or rebuild the thing?
Hey, get back to work.
Technical debt.
When the boss notices technical debt, he says, oh, carry on.
And then debt. Debt is a deep and textured and interesting thing. There's like 5,000 years of history of that to learn about.
Text. Debt.
So that metaphor could go deep. There could be a lot there.
The first 5,000 years.
In a different talk, maybe someone could dig into what even is debt anyway. We'll let that go.
Okay, but seriously.
But seriously, enough of the memes. Let's talk about technical debt.
Technical debt.
Martin Fowler has a delightful website, a Blicky, a cross between a blog and a wiki that's got some of these software development terms, and has a page on technical debt, article on technical debt. Has this beautiful diagram that lays out, here's what's going on, right? There's this essential complexity in software, the complexity that tracks with reality, that tracks with the business domain, that tracks with what we need the software to do. Can't get rid of that. We need that. That's what the software is for.
The large square.
But then there's this whole extra layer of complexity and cruft and friction and noise that is getting in the way of doing the core job of what we need the software to do. It's making new features, making changes, making fixes, making everything we do with the software take more effort than it ideally would have to take.
The square is green and brown.
And so this technical debt metaphor is about thinking of that cruft as debt and thinking about that friction whenever we encounter that cruft as the interest payments on the debt.
It stands beside matching triangles.
So what is technical debt? It is the misalignment between software and reality. The misalignment between the way the software really is and the way the software ideally would be.
Text. All models are wrong.
And it makes sense that there'd be this misalignment. I mean, all models are wrong. Some models are useful. Somebody said that. And software is a model, so of course it's wrong. Maybe it's still useful.
Some models are useful. Software is a model. The square and triangles reappear.
And so technical debt is the way in which the software is not quite right, and we're paying the cost of that every time we do anything with it.
Essential in green, cruft in brown.
One thing we might wonder is, how did that misalignment get there? And that turns out to be really important to the history of where this idea of technical debt came from.
The Y-cache system.
So way back in 1992, when object-oriented programming was very exciting, Ward Cunningham, delivered this experience report at the UPSLA 92 conference and talks about shipping code is like going into debt. And subsequently, every minute spent on not quite right code, that's interest on that debt. And this debt could become so great that it is crushing.
Text. A little debt speeds development so long as it is paid back promptly with a rewrite. Objects make the cost of this transaction tolerable.
He's got a video up on YouTube from years later explaining what he meant by technical debt.
The danger occurs when the debt is not repaid.
And it was from this cultural moment. I mean, 1992 was quite a while ago. With this delightful punchline that he decided object-oriented programming was pretty good and would continue to use objects. Amazing.
Every minute spent on not quite right code counts as interest on the debt.
And so at that time, not only was object-oriented programming exciting and maybe new, that was when agile software development was exciting and new. And that's some of the context for where this idea came from. And there's Ward Cunningham and Martin Fowler, for that matter, right there, original signatories of the Agile Manifesto. And if you listen to his YouTube video explaining this, he talks about speed, talks about the value in implementing our current best understanding of the domain quickly so that we can learn from doing and iterate on it. And in doing that, it's kind of in contrast to a cartoonish version of waterfall development that maybe never actually existed. But that idea of one option is to do this big design up front where we're first going to completely figure out the problem and then we'll start writing software. And the other idea was this then new and exciting idea of agile software development where, well, we're not going to fully understand the domain up front. We're going to get going, write in some software and learn by doing it.
Technical debt plan.
And so here's our plan for incurring and managing technical debt. We're going to do that agile thing. What is that agile thing?
1. Do the agile thing.
Well, we're going to do our best with what we know right now to deliver real value to users, preferably in production, like real soon, like right now. We're going to learn from that and we're going to repeat. And if we do that, we know, and back in 1992, I think there was some real angst about.
2.
We know that we're going to be wrong. We know that we do not currently fully understand the domain. We don't understand all the problems that will arise. We do not fully understand the user's needs. How is that going to be okay?
3.
Well, that misalignment is this technical debt.
4.
Yes, it's going to incur friction. Yes, we're going to pay interest on that debt.
5.
We're also going to be able to pay down that debt by iteratively making the software better align with the ideal version of the software of what is needed.
6. ...
No gnomes are required.
7.
We're going to profit by delivering software, that delivers greater value than it costs, as one does.
An animated elderly man sits at a desk.
And so in that sense, what is technical debt? Technical debt is the best kind of debt. Technical debt is the debt that is incurred in this misalignment between the software and reality, but it is worth it because it's what is allowing us to deliver some value to users, get some feedback from the world, iteratively develop it. It's going to be great.
The elderly man reads from a paper.
And I have now explained what technical debt is. We have successfully completed this talk. We're good, right? We're done. Well, there are some problems with the technical debt metaphor.
Scrooge swims in coins.
One problem is that we can call lots of things debt. I can point at some software and say technical debt. And I'm going to do that because it's kind of a useful thing to do. This debt metaphor seems to work awfully widely. There's this technical original definition of technical debt, Then there's like all other things that we don't like.
The Venn diagram.
We could call them all debt, and we're kind of not wrong to do so because they have this same shape. Bugs, they're debt. You can accept them, and then you're going to keep paying the cost of having them. You're going to keep paying interest on those bugs. You could pay down the principal by fixing the bugs. Sure looks like debt. Bunch of stuff that we might not like, or that happens whether we like it or not, looks like this, has this shape, results in this misalignment between the software and reality. And it turns out it kind of doesn't matter where the misalignment came from. It's still that misalignment. It still has this shape. It still has this effect. And so necessarily there's this kind of nomenclature creep where lots of stuff is called technical debt, even though it's probably not what Ward Cunningham would have originally called technical debt.
Corporate need you to find the differences between these pictures.
Maybe we need to talk about different kinds of debt, which is part of where this has gone. And so back to the Blicky with Martin Fowler, who's terribly thoughtful and a lot of fun. He's got these quadrants set up. Well, let's think about, kind of an axis of how reckless and prudent the debt incursion was. Let's talk about how deliberate and inadvertent it was. We can have these quadrants. He emphasizes that the inadvertent, prudent quadrant is real and necessary and inherent and will always happen. We will do our best to build software. We'll learn something from doing it, and we will eventually realize we should have done it differently, or could have done it differently, or that it now should be different.
Text. Reckless and deliberate. We don't have time for design. Reckless and inadvertent. What's layering?
So there's these different kinds of debt. And we can think of maybe some equivalents in the real world. There's like credit card debt versus business debt. There's debt you'd incur that really just isn't great. There's debt you'd incur to buy a home, and living in a home is a very comfortable thing to do. You need a home, so maybe it's worth it to incur that debt. Maybe it gets a positive return on that debt.
Petition to file for bankruptcy.
We can torture the debt metaphor more with some bankruptcy. Like all those bugs that you never fixed, all that misalignment that was never resolved, it goes poof when the project ends and the software is no longer running anywhere. Maybe we would have been foolish to pay down any of that debt if it was just going to go poof anyway.
Money is fungible. Is software?
I think there's also so we can push the debt metaphor and learn more things and stretch it. I think there's other ways in which it's just not a very good fit at all. Money is fungible. Software kind of isn't. If we have a lot of technical debt on project A so that we can't implement the features people want and we can't do what's needed, I don't know that it's going to make people feel better but we really knocked it out of the park on project B.
The pile of $1 bills.
Maybe not.
Text. Gardening. Sunlight shines upon potted plants.
Maybe we could use a different metaphor, at least sometimes. I like the gardening metaphor. What do we do as software developers? We tend to plants in an ecosystem. And on any given day, you can ignore the maintenance of any given plant. It'll be fine. It won't still be fine if you keep doing that too many days in a row. Weeds encroach. We can prune plants to improve their health, improve their yield. We can learn from caring for one plant, but that doesn't magically make plant be healthier. Plants are not fungible. And plants naturally don't live forever. You eventually maybe harvest your crop if you're a farmer and seed a new plant.
Text. How do you feel about this?
One thing I notice, even just having this slide up, is I feel better. Don't necessarily feel great talking about debt and bankruptcy. And I think I feel better talking about gardening and pruning.
The potted plant appears beside a note. Pay debt.
What does this mean for us? We can be more precise with our terms. We can be more intentional about incurring debt and communicating about that. We can notice when we're paying down technical debt and celebrate that.
Text. Pay down the technical debt.
We can be sure to pay down that technical debt. One problem with this diagram is it needs another color, right? Besides the friction, besides the doing what is needed to add new features, there's also the paying down the technical debt. And one way to do that is a little bit at a time, continually. I love Kent Beck's book, Tidy First, which talks about some of that.
Tidy first, a personal exercise in empirical software design. Maybe you're gardening.
So I think I'm glad I better understand the technical debt metaphor and the term now. And I'm also glad that sometimes I don't think of it that way.
Thank you, Andrew Petro.
Thank you all so very much.
Andrew.petro@wisc.edu. In a cartoon, one character says, "So what do you do for a living?" Another responds, "My best. Dave Perez."
Awesome. Thank you very much, Andrew. Come on, system.
Dave wears headphones, a red paisley bandana, and a colorful plaid button-up over a red shirt.
I think we've got some time for questions. Are there any questions? I do see, Ken, you've got a question in chat. Can we have the concept of technical jubilee? I'm interested to know what you mean by that.
Dave smiles. Ken Khan.
It was half a joke. Of course, Jubilee was every 50 years you let go of all debts.
Got it. Wasn't sure if that was the area you were going for or not. So
I suppose maybe that's when you change jobs, huh?
Dave nods. Andrew chimes in.
Yes. I mean, you don't want to feel like you have to change jobs to get out from under the debt, but that sometimes happens. I think if anything, that reference reminds us of an important difference. Like debt is fictional, right? Debt is a social construct that we agree exists in our minds, but it's not real. You could just decide to not have debt, right? You could decide to zero out the books. That's what that jubilee is. There's a sense in which the complexity and friction in software is a little more inherent in that it's not just a number in accounting. It's a real nature of working with these systems, and we can't magically make it go away. We have to intentionally make it go away or intentionally live with it.
Ken replies.
Well, depending on who you are, you get to make that intentional or unintentional.
Dave.
Very true. Or turn the software off intentionally or unintentionally. Yeah, I like that. Any other questions for Andrew? So just to confirm, Andrew, you're telling me people aren't using hard drives or servers as like physical money, right? That's not technical debt. Okay. Wrong.
Don't think so.
Andrew smiles.
Did this just turn into a Bitcoin conversation?
Dave grins.
I you know, I never thought of that, but yeah.
Or I'm sorry, the new digital currency tokens, right?
So awesome. Well, if there are no other questions, I would like to thank you, Andrew, for giving us this insightful presentation. And thanks for everyone for joining us for this session. I believe next up is lunch from 11:20 to 12:20. So the next sessions will start up again at 12:20.